Thank you, Melanie. Good morning. There are some texts in the Bible that we know just for knowing. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. I am who I am. They're the texts that where the summary of the story is the little phrase that we glean from it. And this text is exactly one of those, if not one of the best. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's. It's even somewhat in the common parlance, even if they don't necessarily know where or what it means. But we do well to now and again come back and sit with it and hear it again in its context. This is the whole conversation as recorded in Matthew chapter 22, verses 15 through 22. Then the Pharisees went and plotted to entrap him in what he had said. They sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are sincere, and teach the way of God in accordance with the truth, and show deference to no one. For you do not regard people with partiality. Tell us then, what do you think? Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not?" But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, "Why are you putting me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin." And they brought him a denarius. Then he said to them, "Yes, and whose title?" They answered, "The emperor." He said to them, "Give therefore to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's." When they heard this, they were amazed and left him and went away. What is in your wallet? No, really, what's in there? Think about it. Take it out if you like. I know that my wallet could do with a good cleaning. Our wallet is where we carry the stuff that makes us who we are. And I have been forced this week to say, well, okay, were I to leave my wallet behind someplace, beyond the anxiety of, oh boy, they have my credit cards, what might they figure out about me? And they would know my name and address, and that I don't wear glasses when I drive. They might gather that I have a family, buy rid of my insurance card, and they might think that I really do prefer Alaska Airlines, only it was, the best value on there. And they might even learn that I am literally a card-carrying member of my profession, as I have a little card tucked in the way back that says that I am an ordained minister of the Pacific Northwest Mennonite Conference. And it's not only just a certification, but it is actually a help when you're trying to get into, say, a hospital or something like that, and you don't have the clerical garb to convince them that, no, really, I am a pastor. You can say, this is who I am. Think about your wallet. And maybe even take out your cash like we did with the kids. Our cash, what little we carry of it anymore, make some particular claims about who and what we are. And it's not that often that we sit down and examine that. These are dollars, a mere notation of representative value that have meaning and value only because we collectively have said, well, they have meaning and value. Have you ever thought what it would be like to be transported onto this planet and see people getting stuff for pieces of paper? And what you might think about the pieces of paper based on our value of that. It's odd. And even as a parent, I'm also trying to figure out, okay, how do we teach about money in a time and culture where sitting down and counting the dimes and the pennies and the quarters seems a little bit antiquated? And not really how things work anymore. But beyond that, our money carries our intentions. In God we trust. May it be so. Out of many, one. Maybe that's something that we need to be reminded of in times where we find ourselves at odds with one another. There are symbols and notations of what we've deemed significant, and they do speak to who we are. I was put in mind of this in a different way about a year or so ago. I watched with interest the pomp and circumstance surrounding Queen Elizabeth and the ascension of King Charles. Not as like a royalist thing here, but simply because, what do you know, I am a subject of King Charles. What? Odd. Because I'm a Canadian. 2. And it's weird, because among all the ceremonies and flowers and the speeches and all the rest came the notion of, well, of course you know that we have to get new money now, which just struck me odd. And then I thought about, well, yeah, this is, even on Canadian money, it is there. The Queen is always heads. Amidst the beavers and the loons and the old prime ministers, it's also the Queen. And now the King. And in case you're wondering, and the reason I put this up here is this DG Regina will now be DG Rats when it changes to the King's image. Deo Gratia Regina. By the grace of God, a queen. To my Republican ears, that's just odd. And I'm guessing probably to you too. But it seems like the divine right of kings is alive and well. And it's there. And sometimes we just need to step out and hear it boldly to say, yeah, the stuff in our pockets do speak to what's important. And the question of what is God and what is Caesar's is also alive and well. There's a wide variety of things that we turn to in the Bible, turn to looking for in the Bible. I don't think political thriller is often one of them. I'm not quite sure why, because when you read the Bible, you find plenty of this political intrigue. It's there cover to cover. The Bible is the story of God in the midst of the story of people. But wherever people in power mix, there too politics will also be. Good, ill, or otherwise. Perhaps we think it a bit too twisted and dirty to consider as part of the Holy Scriptures. But there it is. The day in and day out backstabbing in the name of power that we shake our head at, and rightly so, is on full display all the way through. And it's certainly on display here as the powers that be encounter the one chosen by God, complete with the all-knowing narrator spelling out the motivations of what everyone had in mind. As I said at the beginning, I think we're so well acquainted with this text, or at least its trademark, give to Caesar, I think that we miss the point of the conundrum being posed to Jesus here, and missing the intent of what's trying to be accomplished. And we need to be clear, because what's going on here is that the powers that be are trying to gather the evidence to do what they need to do to get rid of Jesus. They operate in the system that they do and say, aha, if we catch them out like this, then we can say, but. And the fact that Jesus is Jesus and can play their game and know their game well beyond their own just sort of foils it all. The flattery of the questioners as they lay out this question to Jesus shows exactly that it is. What they say has the advantage of being actually true. Jesus does not work within the partialities. He does not show deference to anyone, which was exactly the problem. They struggled with Jesus because he didn't play the game. And they're trying to use that against him. What they could not understand was that the fundamental power with others is what Jesus exercised. And it was something outside of the scheme of Jesus' ministry and leading in the world. The leaders wanted to trap Jesus into the box that they themselves find themselves in as part of empire. The benefits that they receive as people of power place them in that box. They could be too far afield from the demands of the emperor, or simply they would not be there and could not stand. And they couldn't be too far out of the mainstream when it came to Jewish orthodoxy either, because that couldn't stand either. The Herods were kept in place just as long as they needed to be and as they were useful for controlling the Jewish population. And being in this situation, they naturally assume, well, everybody's in this situation. There is no good answer. So let's see how it traps them. Jesus too. They could not conceive of a power outside of the realm in this way, so they could not conceive or understand what Jesus was talking about when he said, well, it's not about this realm. It's not about what's here. At the end of the day, this is not a conversation about taxes or money or currency or anything else. It is a conversation about belonging and citizenry. It asks the questions of, where will you pray that there will be done? To the Holy One of Yahweh or to the emperor? Do you belong to the kingdom of God, or do you belong to the empire? Is your allegiance to the nation where you reside, or to the creator of all? In the words of Joshua in the Old Testament, choose to say whom you will serve. And the answer cannot be both. In the last several weeks, we have seen troubling days. And the problems are almost too many to count, as are the tears of grief and wondering, now what? We read the wars and rumors of wars that are unfolding before us. Our domestic situation seems hopelessly and thoroughly broken. And there's much that causes me to stand aside and wonder what might be next, and only know how to say, Lord, have mercy. And I've asked myself, and I've been asked by many, where do we now turn? How do we now go forward? And let me be clear, I am as shaken as the next. And I find myself at a loss for what to say, let alone what to do. Yet, in sitting with these questions, I think that these verses might serve us well at this moment. You see, the issue here is not necessarily currency or what it says or whose head appears on it or all that. That of itself is neutral. It's a mere attachment to the system that the coin represents. Or, to widen it further, it's an attachment to our ways and patterns that we have as people of this world and the powers that we hold in these lives. And the point that Jesus makes clearly here is that there is something beyond this world. God is not bound by Caesar's system, and is not bound by any human system of power and control. God's system is separate and distinct in its character, nature, participation, and purpose. Jesus is not concerned about questions of political machinations, taxes, or otherwise, because they are not of God's system. And they simply are not of God's way. And I think the same applies to the here and now. We must never forget the impossibilities of the present are not the impossibilities of God. Please hear me. This is not to say that we can simply say, well, we are not of this world, and then go around and acting like none of this matters. It does matter. And what we do and what we say does matter. But it is not, and is not the final word or the final say in how the world will be. We cannot forget, as tempting as it may, that this world and these things and this pain is important, is not where our ultimate allegiance lies. And it's not the ultimate fate of this world. And it's not where our way takes us. It is tempting to be cynical and to take on those cynicisms of the world that we try on. But we must always remember that these cynicisms are just the cloaks and tools of a different kingdom that is not ultimately ours. and our allegiance relies on the kingdom, first, last, and always, and we do well to remember that. So what do we do as citizens of the kingdom in a world that doesn't recognize that citizenry? And in a world where it doesn't always make sense. I think what we do is we hold on the best that we can to the things that are of God. And I think one of the things that is there includes hope. And even as I say it, it sounds airy-fairy, whatever. Because how do you hope when things just seem to be the same old time and time again? But the answer to that is, well, maybe it's the hope that the world as it is not the world as it shall be. Maybe it's the hope that is an act of resistance to the way things are. Just because we are invited to resist. Because we are citizens of another place and another time. We must remember that at times like this, we must reach out beyond ourselves to something that is bigger. It is tempting to be pulled in by the levers of the power that we see wielded every day. And it's tempting also to say, well, that power simply isn't sufficient. It's not going to get the job done. It's not going to change anything. But in that temptation, we must never forget that that power is not the actual power of the world. It's not the power of the universe, and it's not the fate of the universe. It is the power of the kingdom that is the power of the world and shall be forevermore. Hoping in the kingdom is not an exercise in fantasy or disconnect from reality that is so often oppressive. It's not a passive delusion to merely allow us to dismiss what is. Instead, it's a way that we can hold on to the world as it ultimately is, and the world that will be when time is full. Rather than being the witness of the few detached, it's the hope in what shall be that is the sustaining vigor that we will require to be rooted in resistance to what is here and now. Hope is not about it's not the passivity of ambition, but instead the deep-rooted rejection of cynicism and seeing the world and accepting the propositions that it gives us as done and dusted. Or to put it another way, hope is of God. And we dare not give the hope that we have to Caesar. Our future, our reality, our promises are in God. And as such, we cannot ever fully accept the cynicism of the present. The power of this universe rests somewhere else. And it rests in a kingdom where all belong, no matter who the shot is calling the shots. I offer this call to hope as a modest prescription at best. knowing well that these days weary us all. But we can always rest in the kingdom that is our home, our promise, and our way that Jesus calls to us. What is God's? We are God's. The world is God's. The kingdom is God's. The future is God's. Our hope is God's. And we can never give that to Caesar, nor shall it remain unfulfilled. May this be our final and fullest identity, come what may. Amen.